From the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network studios in Des Moines, this is Iowa Ag Matters. In today's show, we have comments on the House passage of year-round E15 from each of Iowa's representatives in Congress. And Mark brings us another clip from the latest episode of Pods of Potential. I'm Riley Smith, one of your hosts for today, and joining me now is Dustin Huffman. And Dustin, let's just jump right into it. Very big news yesterday with that passage from the House of year-round E15, and hopefully this will bring a solution to the battle that's been going on for quite a while now.
Yeah, you're right, but honestly, I hate to say this is only the first hurdle that we've jumped. The biggest hurdle is coming up now, and that's the Senate, where things are a lot tougher. There's a lot of different rules. We've talked about this in the past, that the House does things completely differently. The Senate needs 61 votes unless they can vote to suspend the rules and go with a normal majority vote. However, I don't think it's going to be able to be done because that's going to be harder than passing E15 itself there in the Senate. So we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. I mean, yesterday, 218 to 203, a very slim margin, only 15 votes. And you're talking with a few industry insiders before the vote, they were expecting a 3-1 or even a 4-1 margin of support in bipartisan support. And there was plenty of bipartisan support, but there was plenty of bipartisan pressure to the negative side of it as well. Of course, a lot of that being led by oil state representatives who were saying that this was going to be a damage to small refineries. Also, folks who were fiscal hawks who didn't want to do any more price adding to the budget. And of course, also Democrats on the other side of the aisle who are just playing against just about anything that comes up from the Republican side. And this is not a conversation about who's better and who's worse. I'm just talking about the fact that, we have the automatic retaliation of no matter what the other side puts up, we're going to be against it. That kind of things factor in as well. But still passed and, not maybe by as big a margin as people would have hoped.
Yeah, and I think it's, you and I were listening to a lot of that process yesterday as they streamed it. And you're right, there were a bit of frustrating just stubborn kind of being against year-round E15, especially from those oil states. I mean, we heard a lot. It's like, okay, let's talk more about the actual benefits of E15. Let's talk about the consumer here, because at the end of the day, that's who's going to benefit as well. And with these gas prices as high as they are, I mean, you and I, Dustin, we have vehicles that take quite a bit of gas, so it takes quite a bit of money to drive around. So not only are we looking at benefits for those American farmers, but the consumers should see some pretty quick impacts to their pockets as well.
Yeah, that we will. And, it's just, it was a tough situation. You understand the representatives are looking out for the interests of their state. And if they've got oil refineries in their district, you can understand that. But there was a lot of common sense that seemed to be by the wayside in some of those arguments. And that can be frustrating, but that's with any bill that you go through the legislature with.
Yes, absolutely. And it's been having an impact on the ag marketplace so far today. And visiting now, Dustin, with Eric Relf of Comstock for that opening grain discussion.
Right now, we're talking with Eric Relf of Comstock Investments. And Eric, it's looking pretty ugly on the corn and soybean markets here today, especially in soybeans. What's going on as we open up this Thursday?
Well, we knew that traders had expectations that there was going to be some news come out of this meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping over in China, of course, meeting in Beijing right now. That started last night locally and just didn't get the news that they were expecting. I guess purchase agreements were probably one of the expectations. We didn't see that. So you see a couple of markets kind of taking it on the chin this morning, soybeans being the primary, especially in the grain complex, traded over 30 cents lower, basically since just before the morning break here this morning. And of course, everything else in tow. And then on the opposite side of that fundamental storyline is the technical storyline in the wheat, that also putting pressure on things. We're seeing double-digit losses in both Chicago and Kansas City this morning just because of the explosive trade we saw off the USDA report on Tuesday. So now here we are kind of trying to figure out where do we go from here. And you have all soybean contracts that were above $12 yesterday, now all below $12 going out all the way through November of 27. So traders really hoping for some headlines, some purchase agreements, some concrete numbers out of China. And so far, we just haven't gotten them. It's not that we've had any bad news. We just haven't seen the good news.
Yeah, I was going to say the meeting obviously far from over yet between President Xi and President Trump. But yeah, I mean, I saw reports that it's been talked about, but nothing concrete. I mean, what kind of numbers are we hoping for, even if we can get China to, hypothetically agree to something?
Well, I think if they could put some ink to the idea of 25 million metric tons, that's a number that's been thrown around on an annual basis. I think something like that would definitely excite the market a little bit. Anything more than that would just be gravy. But they are flush with soybeans in China. It's not something that they need. If they do agree to purchase agreements regarding soybeans, it's going to be out of sheer politics and not out of physical need. We are also the highest in the world in the soybean market. So from a price standpoint, it doesn't make sense for them to buy them. And if we remember back to the phase one trade agreement several years ago now, pre-COVID time, they agreed to these purchases if the market conditions were allowing. In other words, if the price was right, then they would buy these quantities. And of course, the headline was China agrees to buy, the market shoots up, they never buy because the market didn't allow. So we've got to watch the fine print, and I think everybody's astute to that this time around.
That's one thing we've been talking about for a while with trade. Is a trade agreement framework is great, but it doesn't hold anybody's feet to the fire to actually make the purchases they agree to.
That's right, and there's loopholes within it, and oftentimes those get exploited, and we saw that back in 2019.
And, we've been seeing corn go for a ride, whether it's soybeans going down today or wheat putting pressure on it as well. But you mentioned the wheat situation. I mean, obviously we got the numbers that were very bullish, earlier this week. But what's really leading the charge back down? The conditions really haven't changed.
The conditions haven't changed. I think that traders are realizing that the USDA may have just printed the smallest print of the year. We often say that wheat has 9 lives, and it still has time for recovery in spots. Now, I'm from Southwest Kansas. As I talk to you, I'm sitting in Southeast Kansas, and it is a tale of two halves. I'm not sure what the final day of the wheat tour is going to show, but the western 2/3 of Kansas are in really rough shape. And if you go south into the panhandles or north into Nebraska, it doesn't really change. That line is pretty hard, and everything.
Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, May 15th will be a special cattle auction. We start at 11:30 on a regular auction. We have first calf heifer pairs on the video, first calf heifer pairs live at the barn, cow calf pairs, bred fall cows, fall calves, and feeders. That's at the Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, May 15th, special cattle auction, 11:30 on a regular auction. You can view our complete listings at burwelllivestock.com. You can view and bid online at DV Auction or Cattle USA, or give us a call here at the auction market.
Well, we are back on Iowa Ag Matters. Riley and Dustin here with you today. Mark Magnuson on vacation, but he has the latest episode of Pods of Potential out, and we're going to have a segment for that for your listening pleasure right now with Mark Magnuson.
Welcome into this episode of the Pods of Potential podcast. It's episode number 30. And today's topic of discussion is how conservation and ag policy overlap. And we're here with our friends at the Iowa Soybean Association today, joined by Chief Officer of Demand and Advocacy at Iowa Soybean Association, Matt Herman, also joined by Story County farmer and ISA District 5 Director Dave Struthers, and Iowa State University Professor Mike Castellano. So once again, we're here at Dave's farm in Story County near Collins, and we're actually in the shop here today. Dave, is he onto something there about as far as what you said about it's getting to that end to market those products, and that's really the goal for you guys? It's something that you obviously want to do?
Yeah, I mean, all farmers farm because they like to grow things. They like to see things nourished, but they want to see a reward for their labor. And so, yeah, at the end game is basically seeing those results, whether it be water quality results or reduced soil erosion or the yields, the good right. yields, and all that.
And then Matt, back to you again. How does policy influence greater adoption of in-field and edge-of-field practices through cost shares? And we're talking about RCPPs or batch and builds, those type of things.
Well, I mean, like I mentioned, I think it's really important, right? Especially for some of these things like edge-of-field practices or out-of-field practices that may not have a direct ROI. For example, Dave might not be seeing increased yield or lower fertilizer applications. Bringing funding, matching funding, and stacking that funding and having it available for farmers to make it clear, how they're going to get that refund or that rebate or that cost share. That's really important. And again, I think as we talked about with limited state funds and limited federal funds, to be frank on this, bringing in private partners, making sure that we can stack those benefits, that's going to be really key. And I think flexibility in public policy will also be really important. I think that's why it is very important that we have this tie-up between what Mike and his team are doing and others at Iowa State, being able to research and determine the benefits, but then bring that immediately into these state policy discussions so that they can get added as qualifying practices. That pipeline of kind of research to policy to farmers is, I think, one of the most critical pieces of this, of course, from my perspective.
Mike, could you tell us, please, a little bit about that research that Matt was alluding to, specifically looking into residue removal, early planting, water quality? What results did you find?
Yeah, Mark. Well, let me link the work we're doing on residue to a couple of things Matt and Dave said. And, the first one is we can't keep on going to the government and asking for more money. And that really, I think, leads to the fact that we got to find practices that we can get the best of both worlds with. Improvements in environmental performance and higher yields at the same time, leading into what Dave said about, just how much his favorite part of the operation is to harvest grain. Well, we'd like to have Dave harvest more grain. And we think, residue management is one of the real opportunities here for kind of a win-win on the environmental and productivity side. For a lot of listeners who may not appreciate this, every year as corn yield and soybean yield are going up by about 2.5 bushels per acre. That's relatively well known. What's less appreciated is that the amount of crop residue production is going up at the same clip. And that comes out to about 100 pounds per acre of dry matter in corn and about 40 pounds of dry matter per acre per year in soybeans. That extra residue, as I've talked with Dave and many times, can create a challenge for planting in relatively cool, wet springs like we're having a little bit of right now. That can also slow down nitrogen mineralization in the soil and lead to environmental nitrogen losses, both towards nitrate leaching and nitrous oxide emissions to the atmosphere, which is a big part of the carbon reduction value of our biofuel products as well.
And it's time once again to run down your basis numbers here on the Iowa Ag Matters program on this Thursday. I'm Dustin Huffman. Only a few elevators making any kind of switches here today, mostly seeing improvements in the bean complex. Let's run down the numbers for you. At ADM Burlington, they're a dime under on corn, $4.66. Soybeans, 23 cents under at $11.83. Cargill and Eddyville, 22 cents under on corn, $4.54 for the cash bid. New Co-op Algona, 42 cents under on corn, $4.34. Soybeans, 60 cents under at $11.46 for the cash price. Ag State Sheldon, 30 cents under on corn, $4.46. Soybeans, 65 cents under at $11.41. Ag State Elta, 35 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.41. Soybeans, 60 cents under at $11.46. Cargill Cedar Rapids, 20 cents under on corn, $4.56. Soybeans, 30 cents under with a cash bid of $11.76. Five Star Co-op Nashua, 33 cents under on corn, $4.43. Soybeans, 70 cents under, $11.36. Lincoln Way Energy Nevada, 29 cents under on corn, $4.47 for the cash bid. ADM Des Moines, 25 cents under on soybeans. The cash price there, $11.81. New Co-op Red Oak, 33 cents under on corn, $4.43. Soybeans, 60 cents under at $11.46. Mid-Iowa Cooperative Green Mountain, 50 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.26. Soybeans, 80 cents under at $11.26. New Co-op Sheraton, 32 cents under on corn, $4.44. Soybeans, 60 cents under with a cash bid of $11.46. Walk-On Feed Ranch, 47 cents under on corn, $4.29. Soybeans, 70 cents under at $11.36. New Co-op Glidden, 41 cents under on corn, cash bid $4.35. Soybeans, 60 cents under at $11.46. Innovative Ag Services Farley, 47 cents under on corn, $4.29. Soybeans, 70 cents under, cash price $11.36. And finally at Cargill Muscatine, they're 22 cents under on corn, $4.54. Soybeans are 34 cents under at $11.72. Cash corn and soybean bids are subject to change without notice. Always check with your local elevator when making sales to obtain the most recent price. And that's been a rundown of your basis bids here on Iowa Ag Matters. Stay with us. We'll be right back after this message.
Every county fair has that special person or family. They are there before the gates open and long after the lights go out, helping families with projects and pitching in wherever they're needed, never asking for recognition. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, along with Wiffles Hybrids, is honoring them with the Heart of the County Fair Award. 6 winners will be recognized locally and at the Iowa State Fair, with a plaque, cash prize, VIP passes, and food coupons. Don't delay. Nominations are due June 1st. Visit iowaagnet.com to nominate today.
Well, the House floor was abuzz yesterday on the E15 matter, and we're back on Iowa Ag Matters. Wiley Smith had a chance this morning to sit down with Iowa 4th District Congressman Randy Feenstra. We will be hearing from the rest of the House delegation later on in the program, but here's what Congressman Feenstra had to say.
Congressman Feenstra, I know this has been a long battle, a long time coming, especially on your side. If you could first off tell us a bit about what all was included in this bill.
Yeah, Riley, I just want to say thanks for having me on Iowa Ag Radio. This is such a big day for the Iowa farmer and for families. You know, this is year-round E15. It's RFS reform to dramatically help our farming community and to see everyone come together. So it started in February of this past year. We couldn't get anything done, and leadership said, hey, we're going to put you in charge and try to figure out a solution. So we put everybody in a room from biofuels to petroleum industry to corn growers to Farm Bureau, and we came up with a solution, and the solution got passed yesterday. So I'm just so impressed that we got it done, and now we're working with the U.S. Senate to get it passed there and to get it to the president's desk.
So from your point of view, are you feeling like this will make it to the president's desk, hopefully in the state that it's in, or are we feeling like the Senate will maybe try to make some changes to it?
I tell you what, I'm really excited. So President Trump has been very engaged in the process. Obviously, he was in Iowa a year ago and said how important E15 is, and he said he'd sign it if it gets to his desk. We had the vice president in town 3 weeks ago. He said how important E15 was, and same with the USDA Secretary Rollins. The great thing that this bill got passed bipartisanly. So there was 122 Republicans and 95 Democrats. This bodes really well in the Senate. And talking with Senate leadership, they were really excited about those numbers to see that. They thought they could get it passed. Again, it's mutually beneficial for all stakeholders, and I don't think it can be changed. We went through all the numerations, all the issues, and this is sort of the balance. This is sort of the balance of what you can do with all the groups involved, all the stakeholders. So I believe it stays the same. It gets passed, and the president will sign it. So I'm looking forward to that happening.
And then I know you and I have talked before about year-round E15 kind of unleashing ethanol production here in the United States because, yes, over the past several years, we have had basically year-round access with those moratoriums, but that does mean that those ethanol producers have to be cautious on how much they're producing because they never know if they're going to have that E15 production. So having that year-round could really increase what we're seeing, right?
Absolutely. This creates certainty. And you think about Iowa's literally the ethanol capital of the world. And this will increase corn demand by about 2.4 billion bushels. It'll create, extra profits for farm income by 13.8 billion. I mean, this is game-changing stuff. I mean, this will unleash domestic energy in our country like we've never seen before. So we don't have to buy from our adversaries. And it's all going to happen in Iowa. And I always promise that we will be the most business and ag-friendly state in the country. That's my vision. It starts with this. It starts with the E15 year-round and making sure that our farmers have markets and that we can lower the gas price at the pump.
And I know, you mentioned earlier of this being a battle, all through the system, but you specifically have been pushing for this for quite some time, so I bet it feels nice to finally see it come through.
It is, and I applaud leadership to understand how important Iowa is, and from myself and the delegation all working collaboratively to get it done. I mean, you think about this. A year ago, we passed the largest tax reduction in U.S. history that helped the American farmer, helped the Iowa farmer with, no death tax and so many other provisions. 3 weeks ago, we passed the Farm Bill that had so many great provisions, obviously, for our farming community, and now we passed E15. So we are delivering results here for Iowans, and that's exciting to see, and hopefully they can see it in their pockets as we move forward.
And is there anything else from your office? You had mentioned, we saw the Farm Bill recently with the House passage of E15 as well. There's been a lot of progress on agricultural legislation. Anything else from your office that farmers here in Iowa can look forward to seeing soon?
Well, I'll just tell you this. This is how you take Iowa to new heights, is that you continue to think of how you can grow our agricultural economy. We know that the farm economy is the backbone to our state. And the Farm Bill, we had 15 legislative priorities in there that got done, now E15. There's a lot of other things that we need to do to continue to help the Iowa farmer, lowering fertilizer prices, lowering input costs, getting more trade. Obviously, we have President Trump in China right now. We're hoping there's good outcomes there for our soybeans. This is all, and our hogs. So this is all on the table right now, and we're advocating and working with the administration on. Again, we will make sure that Iowa becomes the most business and ag-friendly state in the country. That is my vision. That is my goal, and I'll drive this at our state.
All right, Congressman Feenstra, thank you so much for your time today. For anybody who wants to stay in touch with everything going on in your office, how can they do that?
Yeah, they can go to feasterforgovernor.com. Riley, it's always great to be on Iowa Ag Radio. Thank you so much.
Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, May 15th, will be a special cattle auction. We start at 11:30 on a regular auction. We have first calf heifer pairs on the video, first calf heifer pairs live at the barn, cow-calf pairs, bred fall cows, fall calves, and feeders. That's at the Burwell Livestock Market in Burwell, Nebraska, Friday, May 15th, special cattle auction, 11:30 on a regular auction. You can view our complete listings at burwelllivestock.com. You can view and bid online at DV Auction or Cattle USA, or give us a call here at the auction market.
Well, Dustin, with all of this E15 talk, I think it'd be interesting to take a look at the weekly fuel report from the Iowa Department of Agriculture. And the price of regular unleaded gasoline fell 4 cents from last week's price and is currently averaging $4.19 across Iowa. And as of Wednesday, we're also seeing the national average at $4.51, down 3 cents from last week's price. So we are seeing a little bit lower, but man, those prices are just way higher than what we're used to. And I don't know about you, but I'm feeling it on the pocket.
Yeah, that we are. I mean, it has been a dire situation. I mean, you look at gas prices, you look at food prices, you look at energy prices. I mean, everything is just going up. And that was one of the debates that was heavy on the House floor yesterday, was the fact that there are a lot of things that are helping the consumers kind of suffer here right now in the economy. And we need to figure out how we're going to address that moving forward. More Iowa Ag Matters coming up in a moment.
Your local radio station brings you the local news you depend on. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network complements that with ag news, weather, and market updates tailored for Iowa's farmers. Together, we deliver the best of both worlds, local connection and industry expertise. It's all to keep you connected with the heartbeat of the heartland. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, connecting rural Iowa with the news that matters to you. It's time now for a check of the midday markets here on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith. On the phone right now with Amanda Brill of Total Farm Marketing as we take a look at the midday markets. Amanda, there's a lot of red on the grain screen here at midday. I know that a meeting between President Trump and then Chinese President Xi Jinping still going on. Haven't heard much about agriculture, so what's weighing in on the grain markets here at midday?
Yeah, we've got July corn down 14 cents at 4.66. July soybeans are down 44 cents at 11.85. Wheat's down 21 at 6.54. So like you said, a lot of red on the screen. But if we zoom out a little bit, we've been buying into this market up until this report. It does feel like a buy the rumor, sell the facts situation, now, especially now that we have the WASDE report out of the way. And they have been meeting. They've been talking about things. The key thing is that they have not really spoken very much about agriculture or a potential trade deal that would incorporate corn and soybeans. They are still meeting, so that could come later. But I think the fact that they haven't really brought it up has spurred the sell-off in a way. And again, we have the WASDE out of the way. It was friendly for soybeans, a little bit bearish for corn. But once we kind of have these pieces of news out there, I think the market is prone to kind of come back down to earth. And if we really look at things, corn is now where it was a week and a half ago. And soybeans, same thing. This is just the level we were at last week. So it feels like a huge move, but we're really just kind of moving back into the range that we were in before.
All right, Amanda, a lot of great information today. For anybody who would like to stay in touch with Total Farm Marketing, how can they do that?
Best way is just to give us a call. Our number is 800-334-9779.
That again was Amanda Brill of Total Farm Marketing. We'll look at the numbers next.
Your local radio station brings you the pulse of your community. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network adds specialized ag content to help farmers make informed decisions. From county fairs to national ag news, we're here to tell the story of agriculture to everyone who needs to hear it. Together, we deliver a blend of local community and ag industry-focused information that rural Iowa relies on every day. This message from your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.
At midday, July corn down 14.5 at 466 and a quarter. December new crop down 13 and a quarter at 489 and 3/4. July soybeans down 44 and a quarter at 1184 and 3/4. November new crop down 32 even at 1175 and 3/4. July soybean meal down 770 at 330.80. July soybean oil down 97 cents at 73.35. Chicago wheat down 21 and 3/4 at 653 and 3/4. Kansas City hard red winter wheat down 22.5 at 702 and a quarter. Minneapolis spring wheat down 17 even at 702 and 3/4. July oats down 7 and a quarter at 360 even. On the Merc, June live cattle up 82 cents at 253.62. May feeders up 212 at 369.45. June lean hogs down $1.10 at 99.77. Pork cut out when unchanged at 114.47. And May Class 3 milk down 6 cents at midday at 17.03. Thanks again to Amanda Brill of Total Farm Marketing for joining us today, and that's been a check of the midday markets here on Iowa Ag Matters. I'm Riley Smith reporting. You're listening to Iowa Ag Matters. Riley Smith here today, filling in for Mark Magnuson and Dustin Huffman, filling in for Mark on the opening market conversation as we rejoin that conversation now with a check of the livestock.
All right, then switching over to the livestock side of things, Eric, we saw cattle and hogs both shoot up yesterday. Cattle trying to continue that upward momentum here today. What are we looking at in livestock?
Yeah, cash trade is king, and right now we are well below cash in the fed cattle cash versus live cattle futures. There's a huge disparagement there. We saw 265 live traded yesterday. As we're talking here, I've got June trading at 254.10, up $1.30. That's after being up $5 yesterday. So we've already gained about $6.50 in the last two sessions, and we're still running $10 behind cash in that June contract. Are we going to hold cash at 265 through the end of June? Not likely. But that is where we're at right now. So there is a disparagement that needs to reconcile a little bit. We're seeing the results of that. Then you add in the fact that we've got lower grains, higher equity futures, and feeder cattle benefiting from both of those sides of the coin. In the hogs, it's been tough to get going. We have a positive day followed by 3 bad days. But we are finally showing signs that maybe we've put in a seasonal low and we're ready for a grilling season rally here.
And also people have been really watching closely. Earlier this week, the administration said they might be considering removing tariffs on beef imports coming into this country. A lot of folks, cattle producers here, obviously not liking that idea. But the same token is there's been no real incentive for them to increase their herd size. But prices at the grocery store keep going up. And so while the administration wants to support farmers, it also has consumers to think about as well.
That's right. And to your point, I'm literally have one of my screens with a grocery store ad for the pre-Memorial weekend. So it's a 3-day sale, and of the 14 meat items on there, 2 of them are beef. So the prices are obviously not making the sales flyers for sure. And I don't know how much it's going to take to dissuade consumers from beef and push them over into these other products. But we're starting to see things that we've never seen before like this. The prices for the cattle do not correlate with the beef prices. Choice cuts yesterday were down $2 at $388.68 to finish the day yesterday, while we were trading $415 dressed cattle. That's not going to last very long. The packers aren't going to leave that much red ink on the paper for very long. So something's going to change. We can only hope that the beef prices do rise and keep these cattle propped up. But that's going to be to the detriment of the consumer.
Yeah, and that obviously was a topic of discussion while they were debating E15 yesterday on the House floor. It got mentioned that by one of the representatives on the Democratic side, saying that a pound of ground beef is now more than the federal minimum wage, and so consumers are obviously noticing that.
Yeah, absolutely, and you add in the fuel situation that we're in, and I mean the purse strings are getting tighter.
$400 bill on that pull
In rural Iowa, we know you're sold on your local radio station. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network partners with local Iowa stations to deliver the latest in agriculture news, including grain elevator prices, market reports, and ag policy news. Trusted local voices, trusted ag content. This message is brought to you by your friends at the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, where Iowa Ag matters. As you heard earlier in the show today, I had the chance to visit with Iowa Congressman Randy Feenstra after the vote on year-round E15 passing the House. But before the vote, we heard from the rest of Iowa's delegation in the House as they spoke on the floor to give their comments. Dustin Huffman has more.
Well, the bill for year-round E15 cleared its first hurdle by passing the House yesterday. We heard earlier Riley talking with Congressman Randy Feenstra, but the rest of the Iowa delegation weighed in on it as well. We hear first from 1st District Congresswoman Marionette Miller-Meeks.
Since 2011, the EPA has issued an emergency waiver to allow E15 to be sold during the summer months. That means Washington already recognizes that this policy makes sense. What we are doing today is removing an outdated prohibition and finally providing certainty for farmers, producers, retailers, and consumers year-round. E15, as an American-made domestic fuel that is homegrown, lowers gas prices, strengthens our energy independence, and supports rural communities across Iowa and our country. Nationwide E15 adoption would save drivers nearly $27 billion annually. But this debate is about much more than fuel. Agriculture is hurting right now. Input costs remain high through the Biden administration, commodity prices are down, and farm bankruptcies are rising. I've looked farmers in the eye as they've told me their family farms, their legacies, their community bank, their community implement dealer, not because they're failing, but because Washington keeps moving the goalpost. Year-round E15 provides the certainty farmers have been asking for. It would increase corn demand by 2.4 billion bushels, strengthens domestic energy production, and support more than 128,000 American jobs, and injects billions into rural economies, and saves Americans money. And let's clear up some misinformation being pushed about this bill. The legislation doesn't mandate E15. It simply gives retailers the option to sell it year-round. Again, it's removing an outdated prohibition. The fear-mongering and falsehoods being spread about this bill are coming at the expense of America's farmers, rural communities, and the American people. Farmers do not need more uncertainty. They need Congress to finally act and get out of the way. It's time to deliver permanent year-round E15. With that, I yield.
Next, we heard from 2nd District Representative Ashley Hinson.
This is a challenging time for our ag economy, and we should be using every single tool available to us to support farmers and our rural communities. And this bill does just that, driving new demand for American ag products and boosting our farm income by $13.8 billion. Year-round E15 would lower costs across the board for working families across the country, saving drivers up to 30 cents per gallon and reducing those prices along the supply chain. That's a savings of about $200 a year in fuel costs for the average family. Iowans, just for a stat here, have saved $126 million in the last decade by choosing E15 over E10. That's real savings. Full E15 adoption would also help to support 128,000 full-time jobs. So, after years of uncertainty, it is time for Congress to step up and provide this permanent solution. This is something I know I've been pushing for years. This is not a mandate. This is common sense regulation fixes focused right on the consumer. This is not a mandate. It's a market. It's a win-win-win, supporting homegrown energy, reducing reliance on foreign oil, and continuing to support America's producers who do the best thing, which is feeding and fueling the world. I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to support this common sense bill, and I yield back.
And then finally, we heard from 3rd District Congressman Zach Nunn.
Today, we have the opportunity to save every American at the pump up to 50 cents per gallon. We know because we proved it right in my home state of Iowa. The value of year-wide, nationwide E15 is real money in the pockets of families, communities, and our supply chain nationwide. Today we get to choose. If we save every American family those dollars and put it back in their pocket to reinvest in their families when they fill up, or if we're going to continue to allow energy prices to strain families' budgets. Today, we get to choose between a fuel that is grown literally right here in the United States for energy independence, or if we continue to be reliant on foreign powers and adversaries and subsidizing their ability to get fuel to the rest of the world while America does the heavy lifting. And today, we get the chance to deliver for producers. Family farmers like the 87,000 small family farmers that are building that next generation of not only feeding our country, but fueling it. Our farmers work hard for our families. And today, we get to work hard for both families and farmers by putting this bill on the floor. We defeated backroom deals in D.C. to secure this vote that will bring down costs for American families. And now we have the chance today to finish that job. I would ask my friends on both sides of the aisle, this is an opportunity for affordability for families, certainty for producers.
Every county fair has that special person or family. They are there before the gates open and long after the lights go out, helping families with projects and pitching in wherever they're needed, never asking for recognition. The Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network, along with Wiffles Hybrids, is honoring them with the Heart of the County Fair Award. 6 winners will be recognized locally and at the Iowa State Fair, with a plaque, cash prize, VIP passes, and food coupons. Don't delay. Nominations are due June 1st. Visit iowaagnet.com to nominate today.
And that's going to put the wraps on today's edition of Iowa Ag Matters. You can find the full replay online at iowaagnet.com. Thanks to Riley, thanks to Mark, and thanks to you for listening. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Iowa Agribusiness Radio Network.